Hey, what is up there, everybody? It's Odin here. Drawing a bit on this fine Sunday evening. Well, as we get closer into the evening, it's evening. It's evening. The sun's set. um, yeah, just drawing a bit and making a video. Sundays are the days for making videos. That's what I said last time. And then I skipped a week and didn't make one last Sunday. But the Sunday before that, I made one. And in that video, I talked a lot about future plans and a lot going on, and yeah, what we're excited for, both James and I, for Broken Compass Comics for the future, and very excited for that. That was the last video 2 weeks ago, but just working on pages, because that's the other thing. You just gotta always be getting work done, and yeah, excited. It's been fun. Not much else to talk about. I've got pages I'm working on. That's what there is to talk about. That's my life. I work. I work my job. I work around the house. I work on my cars. I work on things that I have to get done. And then all the free, every other waking moment pretty much, I'm drawing or I'm making a video. I'm not drawing right now. Like, I know that I hate drawing and talking at the same time. I don't know why. It's just one of those things. Some people are used to it, and I think in the right environment I would be able to do it, but not when I'm making a video. So, yep, this is finishing up the inks on page 75 on the story. Story number 2, some of affectionately called the Scarecrow story. But the actual title is With Friends Like These, ... That's the title. You don't pronounce the dots. You ever see Sling Blade? The guy, you don't pronounce the dots. They're just there for literary purposes. Whatever he says. With friends like these, ... Because that's an actual phrase, right? The whole phrase, we all know. With friends like these, who needs enemies? And if you've lived long enough, you get an understanding for what the fuck that phrase actually means. But when you're a kid, you're like, I don't get it. You'll get it someday, kid. So inking on page 75, the story, depending on what I do with Vidon's closing monologue at the end, it'll either be 81 or 82 pages. Also, with how I think the Cole story and the page turn is going to work, I might add a page to compensate for that. And the Cole story is 6 extra pages. So say it's 82 with the 6 extra, that's 88. We almost had 90 pages here. So anyway, I'm enjoying, I thought I'd share this, enjoying this tin cup bourbon, American whiskey. What's cool is it comes with a little tin, it's a tin, aluminum, whatever, shot glass on the top. I thought that was a nice touch. Tin cup, mountain whiskey. I think it's made in Colorado. I don't know. It says cut with Rocky Mountain water. And I don't know if they mean like, hey, you should do whiskey and water and cut it with Rocky Mountain water. Or if they cut it with Rocky Mountain water, like you make cocaine less pure by adding baby laxative or something. I don't know. Nonetheless, I cut it with ice cubes that are not from the Rocky Mountains. I wish they were. I wish I was back in Colorado. From the Cascades, I guess. Closest mountain range, Cascades. Either way, it's good. It's a really good whiskey. I really enjoy it. So, inking on page 75, we'll show you some of the previous pages just briefly so you can just see what we're working on. I think this one I was penciling on the last video. So you can see finished ink. Another one. So yeah, we're moving right along. Excited for getting this done and getting it to people. Very excited. And I shared it on my social media. The page, it seemed like it wasn't that long ago that I drew it, but Demir colored, so he is sequentially, chronologically, he's catching up to me, so, which is a good problem, good thing. Which means that we're right on schedule. Yeah. So, what else? What else can we talk about? What else is there to talk about? Not much. So I watched a lot of movies while I draw. Last video I made, I talked about Mad God and how that's such a visual movie. I actually had to put my pen down and just sit and enjoy a movie, which I never do. I always watch a movie and I draw at the same time. Excellent movie. And I highly suggest it to anybody who has a strong stomach. This is very dark, very surreal, but visually beyond impressive. Amazing. Mad God. So check that out. But anyway, I talked about that last video. So lately I've been watching stuff that I can watch passively and keep drawing. And so I got on a Western kick. My daughter got on a Western kick. And so then I was like, hey, you got to see some of these classics, you know. All the stuff I grew up with that my dad would force me to watch, you know. And so I decided to rewatch a lot of those while I draw. And the nice thing is I've seen them before, so I can passively watch. They're also not as visually motivated as others, you know, so I can kind of like look up when I have to, kind of thing. Let's see, which one we watched. Once Upon a Time in the West, which old Charlie Bronson, amazing, really, really fun movie. I mean, it's crazy. It kind of has a weird pacing to it that I didn't like, but the intro with the fly and the train noises and the lack of a soundtrack, pretty cool cinematic stuff there. And then when Charlie Bronson shows up and you only have 3 horses, there's 3 guys standing across from him. Like, yep, looks like we're a short horse, or a horse short. And he goes, looks like you brought 2 horses too many. That was the best. Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. You know, Clint Eastwood, obviously a great. I like the spaghetti westerns. They have more intensity than American westerns. American westerns seem more real, but spaghetti westerns have this intensity to them. So I like Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. That one. Angel Eyes, great character. And I watched El Dorado, which is probably my favorite western of all time. It's hard for me to say. It changes just like anything. El Dorado, one of my favorite John Wayne roles. He's like a little older, but he pulls it off, of course. And then Robert Mitchum was great. I just like the story arc too. And then watched The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. Really like that one. Jimmy Stewart was great. It was more dramatic than I remembered it. I watched it when I was young. I watched all these when I was young, and then rewatching them, you have like a whole different appreciation. And I think it was more dramatic because Jimmy Stewart just has this. It's almost like Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, you know. But that one's great. Lee Marvin, phenomenal, really good villain. Yeah, so watch those. Turn my daughter on to like some great westerns in my mind. There's plenty more that I just I'll get to. I got more to draw, so I got more movies to watch. And I watched The Hustler because it was on Prime and it was about to leave. It's not a western, but early '60s. And Paul Newman, just an amazing job. What a cool movie. I love the concept of the movie. I think what I like most is the character arc of Paul Newman's character. As he starts out, he's young, he's cocky, he's brash, cocky, cocksure. He's cocky. Anything with cock. That's what he was. No, but yeah, he's brash. He's young. He's cocky, and you see that in the beginning, and you see it flow from that young brash, which you kind of appreciate. You're like, I remember when I was young. I remember when I was cocky. I remember when I had that attitude. Nothing could faze you because you hadn't faced any adversity. There was no pensive step in your body. You're just like fucking going for it. And so I love that intro, how he starts out that way, and then it kind of like progresses. He finds love, and all this crazy shit happens. But like at the end of the movie, he comes back and he's not cocky anymore. He's confident. And I love that it was. You can see there's a whole different swagger. They both have swagger, right? Like cockiness has a swagger, and it's a young man's swagger. Like you haven't been crushed. And confidence is like a mature, older man's swagger. It's like you've seen some shit. And that's the thing, like the movie takes you through that. He has to go through the meat grinder of humility and get force-fed that humble pie. That humble pie is an acquired taste. But I will say, it's an acquired taste, but acquire a taste for it, man. Get you some fucking humility. And it's great for showing that, because you can see the difference from one to the other. Jackie Gleason's in it. Jackie Gleason's amazing, because you're used to him as a humorous role, doing the fat man funny stuff. And I read somewhere that he did all his own trick shots. All the shots that he pulled off in that, he actually did, which is pretty impressive. And I hear he's kind of a hard-living kind of guy. So, which all those fat Hollywood guys are like hard-living kind of guys. But as you see him with the cigarette, and again, he has like the older man, mature swagger, and his whiskey glass, with the ice cubes, and that's a scene. I read it in somebody's review on Amazon, but they pointed out Jackie Gleason's character, whatever Fats. I can't remember it's a state or city, whatever Fats. But he tells the bar guy, bring me a glass, bourbon on ice. And that was kind of like the mature confidence. Bring me a bourbon on ice. And then I can't remember exactly how he puts it, but Paul Newman's character is like, bring me the glass, no ice, or no, he kind of basically is saying like, I'm young, I don't need that shit. It's kind of like when you're young, you're like, I'm gonna do this shit to prove how badass I am. I'm gonna drink my whiskey straight, show how awesome I am. It was an interesting dichotomy, or it just pointed out that difference. And then George C. Scott, he was great. It was just a great movie. Anyway, enough about The Hustler. Great movie. What else? I need to talk about movies. Yesterday, I watched. So on Shudder, they had this documentary on 80s horror. The thing was fucking 4 hours long. So I was just sitting here drawing. And for 4 hours, drawing and watching this, which is a great mode and a great fodder for drawing a horror comic to just hear. But it was great. It started like 1980 and like brings you to the end of the decade and highlights different movies, talks about their cultural impact and shit like that. It kind of gets kind of stupid sometimes when they do that, but talks about their impact on movies beyond, like the next movies, and it talks about, it did a whole section on the score. the people who do the soundtracks, and I thought that was actually really well done, because I think it's underappreciated how important the score is to specifically horror and drama, like with a comedy or something like that. Who gives a shit? But movies that are really trying to manipulate your sentimentalities and emotions, which horror does, obviously drama does, but like how important that soundtrack is. So that was cool. Obviously, they highlighted the special effects, practical effects, throwing out the big names, Bottin and Savini and Stan Winston. And that was a treat also, because like, where are 80s horror movies where's any horror movie without practical effects? I think that's the thing that falls off nowadays. Like, that really is what makes a horror movie good, are the practical effects. So that was really cool. Big tribute. And I mean, they had interviews with all the directors, writers, a lot of John Carpenter, a lot of Stephen King. They didn't have any or direct interviews with Stephen King, but he was obviously highlighted quite a bit, because love him or hate him, he's a big part of 80s horror. Yeah, that was really good. And then they highlighted certain movies, which was great, but it seemed like they picked and chose. Obviously, there's tons of 80s movies that, and they talk about the rise of the slasher and the impact of Jason Voorhees or, Freddy Krueger. Because I remember as a kid, Freddy Krueger was, they talked about the branding and marketing, and here's this guy who kills children. Potential pedophile and everything, like, but here they are, like, making toys and shit. But I remember as a kid, like, that was like the thing, everybody talked about it. Like, I have a vivid memory. It was like, I knew who he was, but I never saw the movies, because I was like first grade, second grade, or something like that. And my buddy was like going into this dark hallway, and then he like ran out, and he was just fucking with me. But he was like, I was like, dude, what the hell happened? What'd you see? And he's like, Freddy Krueger. I thought that was hilarious. So, even though at the time, like, I knew who he was, even though I'd never seen the movies. So it was impactful, culturally impactful. Yeah, and then I watched, this was on Aldis's recommendation, there was a documentary about Alien, and also on Shudder, and that was really good. It starts with Dan O'Banion's idea from its infancy, talking about how he hooked up with Ridley Scott, all the shit he had to go through to get the script to be published or produced, and how he met Ridley Scott, that marriage, how that worked. They also talked about the score, talked about the practical effects, talked about the cultural impact. Again, went off the rails. That one, they went way off the rails for like a little bit. I'm like, what the fuck? So I'll always contend that you want a feminist icon, Ripley is that. True feminism, in my mind. She's a badass, she's a great lead, and a woman, obviously. All woman, all badass. Perfect. So they were like interviewing these people that had nothing to do with the fucking movie. I like when they're talking to people who actually have something to do with the movie, not just like aficionados who like have an opinion. Talking with these ladies, they're talking about how like basically how the face huggers and xenomorph, how they rape you basically, and they're like, finally we get to see a male get raped on camera or on screen in film. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about, you crazy ladies? And then they're like, it's showing the demise of the patriarchy. And like, honestly, the documentary is great. That one little aberration, and it lasts for like 5-10 minutes, and you're just like, what the fuck are you on about, lady? Like, it's the patriarchy coming down. You're like, god damn, you are so fucking weird. So anyway, good documentary. Otherwise, great documentary. But that part, I'm like, what do you have to do with this movie? You're not Ridley Scott. You're not Dan O'Bannon. You're not whatever. What else can we talk about? I don't think there's anything else worthy of talking about. Yeah, just watch a lot of movies and draw. This is my life right now, which I'm fine with. I actually enjoy it. So normally around this time, and a video. Normally around this time, but the end of my videos, I typically have some like motivational, philosophical mumbo jumbo. And I tell you guys to be pure awesome and try to motivate you, give you like coach speak, some kind of something to like motivate you to be better than where you're at right now. Because we get stale, we get stuck in our little worlds, and it's easy to just, hey, I'm whatever age I am, and like I don't need to, can't teach an old dog new tricks, or like whatever. And so yeah, I try to leave that. I don't know. It's the old minister in me that used to do that a lot. But I think striving to be above board and pure awesome and a person of integrity and honor, I think those are very important things. And so I always throw it out there. I always want people to be the best they can be. But I don't know. I don't have much else to say beyond that. Like, I always say, be pure awesome. Be excellent in spirit. Other people will recognize it. If you can look yourself in the mirror and know that you conduct yourself with integrity, honor, then you can rest easy. It's basically a shield from all the noise and chatter from the weirdo fuckers out there in the world. Like, and you're gonna encounter that, like, nonstop. That's life. Like, there's some fucked up, weird fucking people out there. And they do weird ass shit. But that's not your problem. You do have to contend with it, and there is a time when it does become your problem. But it's not. Your shield is basically the fact that you've always known that you've conducted yourself with integrity and honor. Because at the end of the day, what other people do, what kind of effect that has on you, how you react to it, that is who you really are. And if you react poorly, that's who you really are. Take a look in the mirror. And if you're not happy, and if you're not sleeping well, but you're definitely gonna deal with people who can take a look in the mirror and think they're just fine when they're actually a lump of shit. That's normal. Like, I don't know if it's delusion on their part or if they just don't give a fuck, but I would want to compel people to be somebody who gives a fuck. To where what you do actually matters. How you react actually matters. How you treat other people actually fucking matters. Because some people don't give a shit. And you're just going to have to deal with that. But when you look in the mirror and when you lay your head on the pillow, how you were, how you reacted, That's all that matters. You don't have to. You don't have to own somebody else's shittiness. So originally I was gonna say, normally I end with like some fucking motivational shit, and then I was gonna be like, I got nothing because I didn't think I did. And then as I started thinking about it, I'm like, yeah, I did. So, and nobody's perfect. We all know that. That's why I absolutely hate the phrase, I'm doing the best I can. Man, when people throw that at me, I'm like, it's like when my kids say I can't. And I've worked really hard to try to break them of saying that. Because I'm like, that's fucking loser talk. Once you say that, and once you accept that as okay, then you're going to say it all the time. Once quitting is an option, then giving up's always an option. And so when people say I'm doing the best I can, it's basically saying I can't with more words. And you sit there and go like, the best, wait, let me hear this. Say it again. I'm doing the best I can. Okay. If this is the best you can do, this is what I want to say to people. I get it. Usually they don't say that unless they're going through the shit and everything's going bad for them. And I've been there. And I probably used that phrase before. It's embedded in our minds for some reason. Like an excuse almost. It is an excuse. But people say, I'm doing the best I can. And when I hear that, I just want to be like, that's the best you can do? That's literally the best you can do? You might as well just give up, Because usually people only say that when like the world's crumbling around them, So, so don't ever fall back on that excuse. The best I can do. I'm doing the best I can. It's loser talk. You're not. Nobody is. But what I always say is, when I don't slip up and say I'm doing the best I can, I always say strive. 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 I worked in ministry for a while. And saw people of all different ages, because I worked with teenagers, I worked with young adults, but I met a lot of like older guys. It was at this biker church I used to be involved with. And from the 14-year-old, we'll go young, like 14-year-old to the 60, 70-year-old, I saw people all across the gamut of where they were in their lives. But they were at church. It was a biker church, so we got colorful, interesting people. All across the gamut of where they were in life. And what I was somebody who would pray with people. And pastor of the church at the time, he trusted me. He said, stand up there and pray with people. I'm like, okay. And they come up. And nobody came up like that act of like, at the end of the service, if you need prayer, come on up. To walk in front of everybody and be like, I'm kind of fucked up. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know where I'm at. And like I said, it could be a 14-year-old. It could be a 70-year-old. And I mean, I would stand there praying for the guys that were like, these, I'm 6'4", and guys that would dwarf me, full sleeve, like fucking, you name it, the most hardcore tats, bawling in my arms. Because they realize where they're at is not where they want to be. You experience that. Or, we had a 24-hour coffee shop. And I worked the overnight shift. Why? Because I was kind of an insomniac, kind of a late night person. And also, I saw the most opportunity to affect the world around me. And this is all when I was young and idealistic, just saying. But I saw the best way to affect the world around me was the people who were actually so rock bottom that they would actually reach out for help. And you get that shit at midnight, 2 in the morning, when you're sitting there with somebody and you're basically the last line of defense before they kill themselves. I don't know where I'm going with all this. I think my point being is like, nobody is ever where they want to be. And I think of the movie The Hustler, like I said, the difference between the cockiness and the confidence. They both had swagger. Man, he had swagger at the end of that movie. It was awesome. But the difference being that he went through the fucking meat grinder to where you're a broken person and you finally realize that no matter how much ability you have, how much awesome talent you have, the adversity that you have to face in life is very real, and it doesn't matter whether you're the most amazing at what you do or whether you're the just some guy who ekes by with no talent and does nothing. It doesn't matter. You face the same adversities. I don't know what the fuck I'm rambling about right now. All I know is at the end of the day, we do have to, like, literally, like, proverbially and maybe literally, stare into the mirror, look at yourself, and are you okay with who you are and how you've conducted yourself? You know, because I've lived a long life already, and there's plenty more to live. And I've seen, like I said, the gamut. I've seen some really bitch-made, pathetic people, and sometimes into an older age. And you're like, you know, when I was doing that ministry, I was like in my early 20s. Like I said, super idealistic. I wanted to help. I wanted to save the world. I cared about some random fucking person that came across my path. Always. Like, if you came across my path, I cared about you. And, like I said, super idealistic. But again, I would see, like, somebody in their mid-60s, like, I don't like the person I see in the mirror, basically, is what they're saying. That's not what they would exactly say. But now, I believe there's spiritual things involved there that I'm not going to go into right now. I think there's spiritual answers involved there that I'm not going to go into right now. But my whole point, whenever like, I think I have a point. My whole point when I think of all this stuff, and when I'm like throwing these ideas out there, like, be awesome, be pure awesome, be somebody with a marvelous, excellent spirit. My whole point when I think of all that is you have one life to live. You have one legacy to leave. Now, I have to face it just like anybody else. So here I am, like, spitting out advice. But, like, I also have to face it. But I do think about it. You know, I've got children, and I just watched my parents pass away fairly recently. You know, so it's like, I think about their legacy. I think that they didn't have a chance to right any wrongs, or they didn't have a chance to, like, change it. Like, as a tree falls, there it lies. And that impressed upon me that I also have that. You know, and there's times where I feel like I'm doing good. There's times where I'm like, pretty upset with myself. Or you didn't handle that properly. Or you could have done this better. I think as long as it's at the forefront of your mind, that you never give up. You never just accept. This is who I am. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. Some shit like that. Anytime some older guy would say that to me, I'm like, good thing you're not a dog, dude. Can't teach an old dog new tricks. Well, you're not a fucking dog. We are sentient in a way that a dog isn't, despite what some weirdo might say. I don't know that I have a whole lot of point there. I'm just rambling. But when I go into a friendship or relationship, whatever, always extremely helpful and hoping the best and wanting to see the best from somebody. And oftentimes I'm utterly destroyed by how much they don't do that. But it's human. We're all fucking human. But I would just hope that we're trying, that you're striving. Anyway, I'm just spitballing. Just being oddly philosophical when I thought I wouldn't be at all at the end of this video. And now I'm at like 37 minutes into this. It's probably a time to wrap it up. There's also a time when you tried everything you can. You let somebody go and go. Well, you do your own thing. Because I've been there many, many times. And I'm somebody I typically believe and try to the bitter end. Usually it's somebody else cutting me off and being like, yeah, I'm done. Moving on. Anyway, if you made it to the end of this video and you're like, what the fuck is he rambling about? More power to you. I do, all of that aside, like real quick though, wanted to thank everybody who has backed Unconditional Shove. All of the digress that I just went on. Rabbit trail, weirdness, whatever. I've had more fun and excitement around making this comic book. It's an infusion of energy in my life. I love these sparks. Like when I did music, it was kind of like that, especially at first. You just get this infusion, especially when you're with a group of guys that clicks and you're excited about the future and you're writing good stuff and everything's just like flowing and your creative energy is like on fire. I love that. I live for that. It's in my DNA to like want to like stay there and do that. So I've had that infusion of love and energy for this, and it's probably not going to be for everybody. I do believe there's an audience that will enjoy it, appreciate it for what it is, and hopefully be return customers, because this is just a springboard. It's just a start. Like, I've never done this before. I'm excited to put this out there, do the next one, and do the next one, and just like build on it, and hopefully keep that like creative energy going. The hard part is like, while you're doing it, like life goes on, like people do weird shit, and then you're also like, trying to maintain everything that you've got to, your responsibilities and whatnot. So, but that said, everybody who's backed this, who's believed in it and got in on this ground floor to start this process, like eternal thanks and gratitude. Because again, if it's just me creating this, I would be really happy to see my book. It's just like when I got a recording when I was in music. I was so happy to have that recording and say, like, I can have this for the rest of my life. I did that. It's the same with this. But to know that there's an audience, it was the same with music. You know, is to know that somebody else appreciates it is super invigorating. And so I'm excited for where the future takes us. I'm at 40 minutes on this video, so I'm going to end it. Thank you for anybody who's made it this far. Thank you to everybody who's backed Unconditional Shove. Thank you for everybody who's going to back Unconditional Shove. This first edition is going to be, you know, I just want it to be special for the people who believed from the ground floor. And, you know, I take that shit like, I am somewhat like a sentimental softie in those kind of ways. You know, like, I do believe that that shit's important. So thank you so much. And thank you if you made it this far in the video. Thank you so much. You are awesome. And until next time, this is Odin, appreciating you all for listening to my ramblings, for backing Unconditional Shove, and looking forward to the future, all the new stuff we get to do beyond just this book. So excited to wrap this one up and get going on the next. So until next time, hope you're being pure awesome, and we'll see you.